It's always a great day when leaks land on my desk, and I have a good one to break down for you. Something about the ambiguity of watch leaks that always keeps me captivated and bringing me back is that I can not only share very accurate renditions of the watches that we are going to see, but to also share ideas surrounding these releases and what they might imply, that the full story hasn't been shared with us yet. See, about a year ago, I made a video on the channel about the inevitable discontinuation of the Railmaster from Omega's modern current catalogue. It turned out to be true, and the beauty about it is that these are such great value for money watches. You're getting an 8806 caliber movement, you're getting a very sporty design, full brushed finish, some of the nicest looking Arabic numerals on a watch dial. But it so happened around this time where we were discussing the discontinuation of this watch, there were also rumours that Omega was planning on giving us a fourth generation of the Railmaster, that it was in the works. Turns out, a year later, this Generation 4 Railmaster is already on the horizon, and the best part about it, it's returning back to its roots, with more than a few specifications that I think we will all like. But since we've only seen one of these unofficial watches on platforms like Omega forums, Reddit, social media, I somehow don't believe that this is the full story, that this is the only watch they're going to be delivering. I believe that we're going to see multiple. We're instead going to see an entire series of Railmasters, different dial colors, maybe sizes, and materials. I do enjoy the story of the Railmaster. I've covered its history at length on this channel before. 1957, the Master series arrived. We saw the trilogy, the Railmaster, Seamaster, and Speedmaster. There was a fourth watch, the Ranchero. I think most of us can agree it was the runt of the litter, and it was discontinued, 2 years after it arrived? Naturally, it is the most sought after today, and the albino dial Ranchero is definitely one to look into. The 1950s design, all of these pieces had a very specified purpose, a racing watch, a dive watch, and the Railmaster being an engineer's watch, very much the true-to-heart professional's machine. And around this time, the mid-1950s, a very specific niche of professional, engineer, scientific-oriented watches were given to us. Models like the Rolex Milgauss, the IWC Ingenieur, the Patek Philippe A Magnetic, and the Railmaster also followed suit. Something I didn't research enough about is the history of Omega and their background with trains and timekeeping. The Railmaster name was not an accident. This watch was very much designed for engineers working on train lines. Now look, this model line never reached the heights and the glory of the Seamaster and the Speedmaster. The Railmaster has been discontinued and reintroduced multiple times across its lifespan, and I mean, we're in the fourth generation now. You can see the picture. I believe the first generation of the Railmaster lasted until about the early 1960s, and in there were many variations of how the dials changed slightly, how the handsets changed more specifically. But the Speedmaster and the Seamaster remained, and it wasn't until 2003 when the second generation Railmaster arrived, now with the innovative, new and exciting coaxial escapement. And I believe it also arrived under the guise of the Aquaterra family. This model, to many, is a fan favorite, still is loved today, and it was launched with so many different sizes, predominantly 36 and 39 millimeters. I think what I appreciate most about it is that to this day, the dial, it still looks historically relevant, but also modern by the way the type has been done. 5 lines of text in total, the handset with the broad arrow minute hand, stemming from a more classically inspired look, I believe the Dash 5 generation of the CK family. Now, there is so much charm to this collection and how it bridged the gap into being Omega's, more appropriated explorer of the family. And look, I'm all here for it. 1950s inspired dial, I'm already sold. But the second generation was phased out, and the third generation arrived. I'm going to say 2017, you could correct me if I'm wrong here. Done in a very smart way, coinciding with the 60th anniversary of Omega's trilogy. As much as we praise the value proposition that this watch offers, it was also quite a departure from the original 1950s look. Here we have a blend of 40s, 50s, and 60s in one watch. The brushed dial, the sector lines dividing the middle, the more 60s looking Arabic numerals and pencil hands. The typeface also moving around, Railmaster at the 6 o'clock coaxial chronometer. And then the case, more modern looking, more aggressive turned in lyre lugs with a fully brushed finish and fully brushed bracelet. I think from day one, the third generation Railmaster was an extremely polarizing model, and adding denim to it would make it even more so. With this watch, many of us would agree, though it is a great value proposition and performance-wise it offers some amazing points, Omega added too many ingredients to the recipe. And so, since 2017, a lot of things have changed in Omega's lineup, and this is where my theory begins. 2021, the Heritage Seamaster 300 landed. And here we had a watch that we could see was clearly inspired by the original from '57, but looking at its dial, it appears that it might have originated in the 1930s. I believe that the Heritage Seamaster 300 was a great test bed for the brand to see how far forward and how far back they could go with design influence and inspiration. In here we saw different materials used, we saw them play with a contemporary size. Some of the colors chosen were fantastic. But most importantly, compared to previous generations of the Seamaster 300, the dial was relatively sparse. They removed the master chronometer, the coaxial branding. They kept it very simple. Omega Seamaster 300. And for us as enthusiasts, that always interests us because it shows that the brand is exhibiting a level of restraint, that they know what they are cooking with. Something else that arrived out of nowhere that took us all by surprise was the 38mm Aquaterra. In so many ways, a gorgeous watch. Perfectly understanding what an Aquaterra should look like. The only drawback and complaint we have with it is it's extremely polished, too much so. So looking at those previous 3 generations of the Railmaster, referring to the sparseness and the simplicity of the Heritage Seamaster 300, but adopting the more contemporary case size and bracelet of the modern Aquaterra, the new generation Railmaster appears to be a combination of all of these things. A combination that does seem to be the best of both worlds. A dial design that appears to be calling back to a reference like the 2503.52 Railmaster from the early 2000s. Especially looking at the spacing, the Arabics, the handset, but a model that's now not 41 or 39, but 38mm in diameter, which is in fact a true diameter to the 1957 original Railmaster. The dial is unashamedly 50s inspired, with no superfluous text. Minimalism chosen again, like the Heritage Seamaster. And I think what aids in the watch's modernity is the fact that these plots, the numerals, they're not using any form of faded or beige looking patina. And all of this housed in a contemporary case, which seems brushed, polished, modern looking. Now look, there are a lot of things to note about this piece, and I have quite a few assumptions that I'll share to you. We don't know. The jury is still out whether or not this is just a 38mm Aquaterra case with a new dial dropped into it. Could very well be. Another assumption is that this watch is going to be using an 8806 caliber. I'm imagining that it's going to have a fixed case back instead of an open one. To bring down its overall thickness, it'll probably be about 12mm. The crystal won't be boxed, it'll be slightly domed. It appears that its crown is still using the Reese's cup design. And as far as the bracelet goes, maybe the center links will be the only things polished, here's hoping. Now the elephant in the room is this gradient finish on the dial. From the leaked image, it looks to be a dove grey of some kind. Now whether this adds any complexity to the watch's look, it remains to be seen. But the question remains, if this grey dial is the only color that we're going to see, and I don't believe so, the use of blue would interest a lot of people. Or how about an option like an emerald green? And my personal favorite being a tropical tobacco brown. And then naturally this makes us think that this watch is not only going to be given to us in steel. Precious metals will look great with these dials too, so yellow gold, rose gold. I think following the typical Swatch Group mantra, what they have done with the Railmaster, with this explosive gradient dial, is that they have borrowed inspiration from Longines, from their heritage divers. In my mind's eye, I believe that there is a Longines diver that looks almost exactly like this, having a dial that looks almost identical. So what do we know so far? The Generation 4 Railmaster is on its way. From the one watch that we have seen, it's 38mm in diameter, seems to be using the Aquaterra case and bracelet. The dial is more true to the Heritage family, embracing sparseness, simplicity. To me, it seems to be the perfect combination of an old dial design meeting a contemporary case. And I think this mixture of using the correct hands, the correct dial, makes this watch sing. So where the Railmaster has had quite an undulating history, lots of failed attempts, lots of rewrites, recreations, this generation seems to be a watch that understands itself. Understanding the success that this collection had in the early 2000s. I might be wrong in saying this, but it feels like the Railmaster has finally found its stride. So it's wondering how Omega is going to promote this watch. How are they going to make the Railmaster a more bankable, acceptable, and approachable name? And what do you think of this next generation? Are you on board with me that this dial cannot be the only option? Surely we are going to see hints of green, blue, red, and I'm hoping brown. Finally, producing one of their best examples of an all-purpose sports watch. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. See you in the next one.